Welcome back to the Vale Echo. Today we step into a place where silence feels alive, where the cold Norwegian air carries secrets that have lingered for decades. Our journey begins at dawn in a fog-soaked valley surrounded by jagged mountains. The mist hangs low, swallowing the ground in a pale, ghostly veil. This is Isdalen, better known as the Death Valley, a place where hikers tread lightly and the air itself seems to warn you to turn back. But on this day, something far more disturbing than silence waited to be found. A lone silhouette stood against the shifting fog, a woman whose identity the world would never truly grasp. Her figure appeared almost otherworldly on the mountainside trail, calm, still, and swallowed by the mist. The forest path she walked was dark, damp with melted snow, and strangely quiet. Even nature seemed hesitant to disturb her as she drifted deeper into the unknown. Hours later, the peace shattered when a plume of smoke rose from the rocks. Police arrived to find a scene no one was prepared for: burnt belongings scattered on the cold ground, pieces of fabric fused to the stones, and the unmistakable smell of something far worse. The woman's body lay there, charred beyond recognition. A crime scene, but one that felt more like a message. Investigators combed through the wreckage, sifting through ashes and debris, searching for anything the fire hadn't devoured. What they found shocked them: a strange coded note written in block letters, the kind of message that suggests secrets meant never to be uncovered. The flashlight beams trembled slightly as officers realized they were looking at something far bigger than a tragic accident. The trail of clues soon led them miles away from the valley, to a vintage 1970s hotel room that looked more like a spy's safe house. On the desk, multiple passports, each bearing different names, different nationalities, but eerily similar faces. A woman living many lives, or perhaps none at all. In grainy memories captured by hotel staff, she wore large sunglasses and a wig, drifting through European train stations like a ghost with a purpose. She signed hotel documents with false names, her handwriting neat but emotionless. Suitcases she carried were filled with wigs, coded notes, and maps marked with routes that stretched across half of Europe. Who was she running from, or what was she chasing? The deeper investigators dug, the stranger her life became. Bergen's narrow night streets held glimpses of her shadow fading into the fog. The valley where she died held almost nothing: no fingerprints, no wallet, no trace of a past life. But the mystery of her presence echoed loud enough to shake the investigators who walked that rocky terrain. And so, the first chapter of this chilling puzzle closes where it began, in the cold, fog-covered valley of Isdalen, where one woman's final steps were swallowed by smoke, shadows, and secrets waiting to be told. The deeper investigators went, the more the mystery fractured into countless identities, each one leading to a darker truth. As detectives reopened old travel records, a pattern emerged, a shadow moving across Europe with precision. It was as if the woman lived in the spaces between borders, slipping silently from one country to another, avoiding detection not by luck but by skill. And with every step, the image prompts scattered through her life began to connect, revealing a portrait of someone who never wanted to be known. One of the earliest confirmed sightings came from a crowded European train station. In the grainy images, she wore oversized sunglasses and a perfectly styled wig, gliding through the terminal like someone who had walked this exact route a dozen times before. She never rushed. She never hesitated. She blended into the crowd with a confidence that felt almost trained. The more investigators studied these moments, the more they wondered: was she a spy, a courier, or something even more hidden? In another scene tied to her trail, she appeared at a hotel front desk, calmly signing registration documents with a name that wasn't hers. Her expression remained unreadable, and her eyes, hidden behind the dark glasses, seemed to survey every corner of the room. She carried herself like a woman who knew she was being watched but didn't fear it. On the surface, she seemed ordinary, but the suitcase she kept close told a different story. When investigators finally traced her luggage, the contents shocked them: multiple wigs, maps with cryptic markings, coded notes written in block letters, medication labels scratched away, and perfume bottles filled not with fragrance but with strange chemical mixtures. It looked less like belongings and more like tools, items chosen with intention, assembled with purpose. But what purpose? The image of detectives hunched over a map board brings to life the frantic energy inside the investigation room. Red strings formed tangled webs between hotel names, train routes, and dates, stretching across Germany, Belgium, Norway, and beyond. Every thread led to another version of her. She wasn't one woman, she was many. And yet, none of them felt like the truth. Witnesses from cafes and train stops described secretive meetings. One remembered seeing her sitting in a dark corner of a small cafe, speaking quietly to a man whose face seemed carefully hidden behind a newspaper. Rain streaked down the window beside them, casting broken reflections across their table. No one could hear what they said, but their exchange carried a tension thick enough to cut. Then came the forensic discoveries. Chemists and investigators studied the perfume bottles she carried, analyzing their contents under cold laboratory lights. Strange chemicals, traces of unusual substances, not enough to identify her role, but enough to suggest she handled materials few ordinary travelers ever would. Was she part of a network or operating alone? Even captured on CCTV, her face remained a blur, like the camera itself refused to reveal her. The more the detectives uncovered, the more the woman dissolved into smoke, slipping through their fingers like she always had. What they were chasing wasn't just a suspect, it was a ghost wearing masks across Europe. And as the clues piled up, one unsettling truth became clear. Every identity she wore brought her closer to the valley where she would take her final breath. Every move she made was part of a path leading straight back to Isdalen. As the investigation entered its final stretch, detectives returned to where it all began, Isdalen Valley, a place where the wind itself seemed to hold its breath. They walked the steep cliffs and fog-draped paths once more, searching for anything they might have missed. The mist curled through the rocks like pale fingers, whispering memories of the woman's final moments. Every step echoed with a chilling question: was her death the result of fear, a mission gone wrong, or something much more orchestrated? Their search quickly led to a discovery half buried beneath a thin layer of snow: an old notebook. Its edges were burned and its pages were nearly destroyed, but inside, faint lines of coded numbers remained. The charred notebook matched the strange block-letter messages found among her belongings, reinforcing the belief that the woman lived in a world of secrets. Whatever these codes meant, they had followed her to her grave. The forensic team worked tirelessly, reconstructing her story piece by piece. An autopsy room bathed in cold white light revealed toxicology results that confused experts. Traces of unusual substances lingered in her system, chemicals that didn't match suicide, and yet didn't fit any known homicide method either. Her x-rays showed healed fractures, signs of a physically demanding life, perhaps even training. Every detail in her body told the story of someone shaped by danger. Meanwhile, investigators spread photographs, documents, and witness sketches across a crime board illuminated by a single flickering lamp. Arguments erupted as detectives debated what the clues truly meant. Each piece contradicted another. Each theory pulled them deeper into a maze. The woman had lived in the shadows, creating identities, leaving hints but never enough to be known. It was as if she planned, even in death, to remain a mystery. Newspaper headlines from the 1970s documented the case with grim fascination. Unknown woman found in Death Valley, police baffled by spy-like evidence, and identity still unconfirmed. The public feared espionage. Governments remained suspiciously silent, and the few witnesses who remembered her described her with the same haunting phrase: she looked like she didn't belong to this world. As the final days of the investigation unfolded, detectives followed her last known movements, tracing them back to the foggy mountains where everything ended. Their boots crunched across the snow as they walked the empty trail she once traveled. The valley felt untouched, frozen in time, as if waiting for her return. But all that remained was an unsettling quiet, an unfinished story suspended in the cold air. Standing on the edge of Isdalen Valley, the investigators realized the truth: some mysteries are not meant to be solved. The clues whispered, the shadows shifted, but the answers stayed buried beneath layers of lies, fear, and time. And so, the story of the Isdal Woman remains what it has always been: a riddle carved into the mountains of Norway, a ghost walking through history, and a reminder that not all puzzles want to be put together. And with that, the cold wind closes her file once more.